Welcome to Bosses with Baggage. I'm Sherry Sutton, your host and business growth guide. Around here, we believe that failures are our superpowers. So in this podcast, we'll explore the many ways that setbacks can mold, shape, and change your life and your business and ensure that you come out of the fire better than before. Through interviews with business leaders and discussions of my own personal struggles, we'll unlock the secrets to turning setbacks and low moments into opportunities to thrive. From approaching your business with a servant's heart to getting comfortable with being the face of your brand, each episode will be a safe, judgment-free zone to reframe the concept of failure with honesty, empathy, grace, and a whole lot of laughter. So are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to Bosses with Baggage, the podcast where we talk about all of the icky bits you got inside of you because we all got them. And if we don't talk about them, we're going to be ashamed of them. And that's craziness. And so this is the place where entrepreneurs come to talk about the dark nights of the soul that got them to where they are now and is now allowing them to live a life of service and radical authenticity. And I'm so excited. I'm here today with Krista. Say hello, Krista.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to have so much fun on this podcast. I can tell already. We were already talking for way too long before this. So I'm so excited to get to know you better. So Krista is a money coach working with female entrepreneurs who are mamas. And the name of her Instagram is Money Making Mamas. But there was a dark night of the soul that led to that. And so Krista, I'm going to just hand it over to you to tell us what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now.
So I'm going to apologize to everybody for what it's like now because I have my sexy voice on as I deal with a bit of a sinus issue. So this isn't my real voice. This is my get sexy with y'all voice.
And we thank you, Krista. We thank you for that.
So I'm here, I talked to people today about financial freedom and, being in control of the money. And the reality is I wasn't always there, right? I was not always good with my money. I had my head in the sand for a very long time. I grew up in a traditional household and it was up to the men to handle the money. And my husband was the breadwinner. So I left it all to him. I always said, I'm not good with money. I don't know what I'm doing. That's up to him. And, we actually split. We got separated, and I was figuring it all out. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I got this. I can adult, right? I got 2 little kids, but I can adult, sure. And then he got diagnosed with cancer. And of course, at that point, right, water under the bridge, doesn't matter. I moved back in, taking care of him. His battle was very short. 10 months later, we did lose him. And, I found out how much my head was in the sand. I found out some very harsh realities and, it wasn't fun. And that first year was the hardest because it's all the first, right? That first Christmas, he passed in August and here we are. I live in New England. It gets cold, right? We get snow, it gets cold, pipes freeze, and we get icy roads. And I'm looking at my money going, all right, I need tires. And I need oil. Which do I get? Do I get 2 tires? And I what? And I'm sitting here going, right? I'm just pulling my hair out. And my kids at the time, they were 9 and 12. And they came over and they had gotten gift cards for Christmas. And they gave me their gift cards and said they wanted tires for Christmas. So proud moment as a mama. That I was like, oh, look at my kids wanting to be part of the solution and being so selfless. The worst feeling in the world as a mom, though.
That's so heartbreaking. And the shame and add that to that, all of the grief.
Yeah. It was horrible. It was just, I felt like such a piece of shit, honestly. But at the same time, it was here's the Scarlett O'Hara moment, right? I'm never going to be poor again. And I was hiding my car in the garage from the repo man, right? Because we were left with a lot of medical debt. We had used all our savings trying to save him, two incomes that used to, kind of be tight anyway. Now it's only mine. And I really didn't have much of a job. I didn't have much of a skill set. I was a mom. I had a side hustle that was, and so it was a bit of a shit show. And I started just pouring all of my energy into understanding how to not be poor anymore and how to not put my children in that position again. And so we gamified it, and we did an envelope system, and we started that way, and we didn't put any money in the bank anymore. We put it in envelopes to pay. And when that's all we had. And the game was to try and have a little extra in that envelope. And my kids, we made a choice with me. We could give up our house and move in with my mom, or we could stay and fight for their home. And it wasn't just up to me. Yes, they were young, but it wasn't just up to me because they had to deal with it too. So we made that decision together, and we decided to fight, and we did. And there were some really ugly times. Um, but it was the three of us against the world, and I'd like to say that it was a nice, a nice journey, but the reality is I was so overwhelmed and petrified that I didn't file my taxes, right? Because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have money to pay these taxes. So I just kicked the can down the road, and I didn't file, and I didn't file. I mean, like, for years. And then my oldest was applying for college, and she came home, and she's like, Mom. And I remember it, my gosh, so well, sitting there cooking. And she comes in, and I could tell it wasn't her normal coming in, right? She was like, Mom. I'm like, yeah, honey, what's up? She was, I can't apply to college. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have busted your ass. You're top of your class. You've had all these, like, you've done everything. You've taken college credit while she double majored, and she was actually in college while she was in high school. Like, what are you talking about? You basically already have your associates. Of course you can go to college. She's like, no, Mom, they need our taxes, and they can't get our taxes because the FAFSA requires taxes. I hadn't filed them. So here I was so proud of myself that we've been digging out, but I still hadn't done the thing. And it bit me in the ass. And here I was failing my kids. And that's when I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to learn about taxes now. And I'm going to get really comfy with that F word of finances and financial freedom and turn that fear around. And I'm just not going to do it anymore. And
Yeah,
so I
because how
did.
much time was there between when he passed and and that conversation?
That was 5 years.
Yeah. So in that 5 years, it sounds like you were doing the education, but maybe not like the soul work,
Yeah.
right? Around it.
Mm-hmm. So we dug out financially, but we hadn't healed our money trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoarding every dime I could, and I was still so afraid of owing or like actually facing my finances and where I stood. So yeah, we knew where we stood on like paying our mortgage and that type of thing. But we didn't really we didn't take the blindfold off, and we didn't deal with all of our shit. And it really came to bite us in the ass because when I did finally file, what really sucks? I would have got money back. Like, really? Really?
That's awesome. Like and that's so true. That like, we allow the fear of what we think is going to happen keep us away from doing the hard things. And then if you do the hard thing, you realize like, oh,
It's not that
I
hard.
see this all the time. We both deal with, or we both get to work with female entrepreneurs, right? And entrepreneurs and anybody in general. But I find people they're like, oh my God, they keep putting off doing, let's say, especially social media. Keep putting off doing their social media, keep putting off their social media, and they create this big drama around it, right? Of what it's going to mean and how much time it's going to take, and then they do it, and they were like, oh. That
Really?
only took 5 minutes, right? I do that still. I did that with this. I had this project yesterday, and I hired a coach to help me because I don't have the accountability. I'm screwed. And
I didn't get it done. I created big drama around it. I stuck my head in the sand. I'll get it done eventually. And it became to an hour before the meeting and I had not gotten it done. And it was all just my own drama. And then I sat down and I was like, oh, I probably could have been ready in time for the meeting, but I made it so much bigger.
Yeah, all the time. I see it all the time. And when I work with women and they're like, that didn't suck. I'm like, no, it doesn't. We can laugh our way through it. It doesn't have to suck. And it also, guess what? It doesn't have to all be done in one sitting. We can take baby steps. It doesn't have to be painful. And I'm sorry, but I have my oldest is now an accountant, right? She got her master's, she's becoming a CPA. And I tell her all the time, freaking accountants make it seem like it's so damn hard. And it's not, right? It's where did the money come from and where did it go to? That's all we're doing. And when we break it down that easy, is it that hard?
Though, I think it's so, and you can speak to this better than I can, but I think it's all tied to however we were traumatized in our own special way as children, right?
Yeah.
Because we tend to be traumatized in two different ways, right? I was traumatized in the like, I'm going to put, my family just put their head in the sand and didn't pay attention and didn't pay the taxes and didn't do the things and it bit us in the ass, right? And then there was this giant catastrophe but we never talked about it before then. And then there was this like, what do you mean we have to leave the house? And my husband was traumatized with the like constant, there's not enough. Why are you using another garbage bag? Right. You don't need, it's not completely full. Right. And so I think we get traumatized with either that lack mentality or the, head in the sand mentality, or is that what you find? Is it all sort of root back to childhood, or where does it come from?
So what's funny is I named my business Money Making Mamas because it's uncomfortable to say. Most people have a very hard time saying, I want to be a money-making mama. Try and say it out loud. It feels weird. We are not, it's taboo to say, I want money. I like money. I want more of it. I want to keep more. I grew up with a single mom myself. And, I remember the slivers of soap. You save the slivers of soap and you melt them together, right? The powdered milk, the government cheese, the big tin, the can of peanut butter. And I used to resent how frugal she was. I hated that I had hand-me-downs. We had to wash out the plastic bags and wash the tin foil and but you know what? All those lessons came to serve me. And then I had my dad who was totally the opposite. Like he couldn't keep a dollar to save his life. He is still broke as broke can be. And he's made so much money in his life. And here I am paying for his cell phone bill because he doesn't have the money because he just spends it. Right? So I had these two, thank God they were divorced. Can you imagine them in the same house? I had these two polar opposites of parents that I saw my dad piss through it and lose house after house after house. And I saw my mother, my father says that she, remember the old nickels that had the buffalo? That she could hold on to a nickel so hard she make the buffalo shit. My mother never, ever, ever took us out to eat, ever. We've never been out. She is the most frugal person still. I think she has more money than God currently, but she is the most frugal person I have ever met. Still. She owns 2 homes and she's so cheap. Like, it's comical. We kind of joke about it. How all of us, there's 9 of us and all of my siblings, we just all joke about it because but those lessons scarred me because I still have a hard time being generous sometimes. I'm generous with my time. I am not generous with my money. And I know that is a childhood trauma.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's a trauma, but at the same time, it's a benefit, right? I mean, any of these things that happen to us, right? It can be the worst thing that happens to us, but also the best, right? And so do you see that with your clients as well? Do they have some roots like this when they come to you? And what are some of the common themes that you see? And, what's their baggage, right? That they then need to work through in order to really, be willing to own their money story.
So most of them, one of the biggest mistakes I see is that they just don't handle it. They just ignore that it's there. And they think that I have this magic wand just to make it all. And I can track it and I can show them. But let's dig in and say, okay, You need to actually know it's your money and that you have say and control over it. You get to decide. And that word, that budget word, people hate that word. I call it a money plan, right? It's giving your money a job. And you get to decide. And then it was like they just don't want to do the work. And I don't mind doing the background stuff, right? I'll track it for you. I'll tell you where it came from, where it went. But then we do need to sit down and actually deal with, hey, I had one guy, love him to death, great client. And he's like, I'm making so much money and why don't I have any left? I'm like, dude, you got great sales, but do you realize that you cracked $1 million in sales, but you know what it took for you to make that? You spent over 2 million to make it. So you don't like your price point, because he's just like sale, right? It's all about the sales. He has no idea how much it's costing him because he's not looking, because he doesn't want to see what he's spending, because there's guilt, shame, blame. And that
I
came
think
from
a lot of it too is, and I see this with entrepreneurs that I work with too, is they want to just put their head in the sand because they want to focus on the fun, glamorous pieces. And I think especially for business owners, there's a lot of pieces that are not glamorous. And you know, I think we've been sold, we being entrepreneurs have been sold this idea of, you know, work 3 hours a week and here's me, you're going to be on this yacht and you're going to make all this money. And it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't really work that way. There's billing and accounting. And like right now I have somebody who, you know, like paid too much by accident. Now I'm trying to refund her and I don't know how to refund her because I don't know how the system works. And I'm trying to get a hold of my accountant and she's super busy. And, you know, it's just, but those are the things that you're chasing down as an entrepreneur. And we, you know, it's back to just putting our head in the sand. And I feel like we do it so much around finances in our world. It's just, la, 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 la. It's like,
we feel like failures. We feel like we suck because, okay, we've worked so hard. And I just did it with someone yesterday. She's like, that's all I made. And I'm like, okay, when we look at our profit and loss, right? It's income minus expenses. It's not even a real freaking number. It's a fictitious number, right? Because it's not like you have that number in your pocket or in your bank account. It's this fake number. And she goes, that's all I made. I said, nope, that's what your business profited. There's a difference. You look at the paycheck you gave yourself. Look at the life that you've lived for this past year on your business. So, okay, that's all you have to be taxed on. Yay, you. But look at the life you had for the year to create that. And she had so much, I worked so hard to only make that. I'm like, no, look what you put in your bank. Look at the home it provided. Look at the travel it provided. Look at all these things that it's done. It's not just that bottom number. There's so much more that came into there. And so we have this judgment of, or expectation of where we're supposed to be. And we don't see what's in between and what we created in the meantime. And there's value in that.
yeah. And I think people don't realize that the people who are on the yacht is being paid for through the business, not through the individual. Right. And that's one of the things that, you know, love him or hate him, but Trump really brought to our awareness is this idea of people are like, well, why is this, you know, like his tax records, right? And I think it's, you see how much he really makes, which is, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not that much money in comparison. And you're like, well, this doesn't compute, right? And I think it's because we think that, you know, we're going to have all this, you know, money as individuals, where often when you're a business owner, it's all in the business, right? It's not in our bank. It's a different way of looking at business. And even for me, because I've struggled with this, having come from the corporate world, and there are times where I've had to sit down and like coach myself and say, okay, yes, that's true. Like my paycheck, because I do pay myself a paycheck and I mail it by a check. Yeah, because I just think it's fun, right? Like I mail myself a check like it's the 1980s, and then I, you know, sign it. I don't go to the bank, but I, you know, so I pay myself, but I also have to look at, okay, here's all the things that have made my life better that I don't pay for, that aren't coming out of my salary now, they're coming out of the business, right? And that have allowed me to have this incredible lifestyle, right? Like this office, right? My home office, my computers, my, all of those other things. When you add up all those, like how much money would I need to make in the corporate world in order to get all of those things? You're like, oh, wow, now I'm doing really well.
Right? And that's what I think, again, love him, I hate him. What Trump showed us is the tax code that he didn't write. Our forefathers in our country continue to write. The tax code was written for business owners. Our IRS, our government, rewards us. And I don't care if you have a full-time job, get a damn side hustle because you can take advantage of the same tax laws that Trump is. I
Yep.
have a client, and again, she's a part-time, right? But she's a real estate agent. And I argued with her because she wrote her yacht, little yacht, not a big yacht, yacht off on the business. And I was like, oh, dude, you're so getting freaking audited. And she goes, I don't care. I said, I'm not putting my name on it. And her CPA agreed. She says, you're getting audited. She says, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, we got a bet for you then. You win. I'll give you 3 months free bookkeeping. I win. I want a week on the yacht with my family. Right? Let's get a wager going. She frickin' won. Right? So here she bought this yacht on the damn business, a $300,000 piece, like, because she's a real estate agent that shows property on the river. I was like, shut up. Now, did she get audited? I was absolutely right. It red flagged her for an audit. But we said we documented it, and the IRS is like, yep, that's a totally. I was like, what? She won.
Love it.
So,
all right, so this is a whole other podcast that we could talk about.
I can totally geek out on that stuff.
I know.
It's like, this is where, for me, when you say baggage, right? Our baggage serves us. What you're carrying around is really where the sweet spot is for you to then help other people. Because this is why most people got in business to be of service. And they got into what they're doing because they're healing whatever baggage they have. So what are you doing that you love so much that is really because of some of the baggage you're carrying around?
Yeah, and I think, I'm curious on your journey with that, because we have these, I call them dark nights of the soul, or we have these, these moments in time where there's a fork in the road and we have to make a decision of what we're going to do, right? And you really said, I'm not going to stick my head in the sand anymore. I'm going to go learn how to do this. This is a skill set I do not have, and I need to learn how to do this. So I guess, what did that look like a little bit? But I also want to know, like, how did you go from there to then working with other people? Because I find that that's sometimes the most soul enriching part of these dark nights of the soul, is taking those and then using them as a way to be of service to other people. So I'm curious about how that journey went for you. How did you get there?
So when I was pregnant with my oldest, I did not want to go back to work, right? I knew when I got my puppy and I had a hard time leaving my dog that I was going to have a hard time leaving my kid. So I decided to open a home daycare because I could stay home and make money because I still needed to make some money. So it turns out, as I was doing the daycare, you have to keep your bookkeeping on a daycare, right? Which I did. Where did the money come from for each family? And I had to track the expenses for the daycare. And my tax pro said, hey, you're really good at this. Can you help my other daycare moms? Well, sure. I don't think I'm good at it. Okay. It was just it was a graph paper, right? And so I helped other moms. And my husband at the time was he was a firefighter in our town. And, firefighters always have side hustles. So I helped them. And here I was, a bookkeeper, right? Who didn't handle my own money, but whatever. So I had this bookkeeping business, because bookkeeping is actually pretty easy, especially for other people. Your own is not as easy. Other people's way easy. So then the shit hits the fan when Scott dies. And then I was like, wow, I'm a bookkeeper and I really suck at my own shit. So really learning how money works, how to make it, how to keep more of it, how to not pay things that you don't want to pay and be more intentional. And I was like, okay, if I don't know it, other people don't know it either. So I started teaching my business owners, and I didn't just do that. So that's why you'll see it says "Not Your Father's Bookkeeper" on my bookkeeping business. I have two businesses. I have Money Making Mamas, and then I have my bookkeeping. And it says "Not Your Father's Bookkeeper" because we get into it, and I can see when I look at their books, I can see when there's marital problems, and I'm like, let's talk about this. Then it becomes a therapy session, right? And we started doing more and more about cash flow and profit and getting out of debt and all. And we started really, it started being more than bookkeeping. And it started because I had to figure out my own shit. And I was like, if I don't know it, other people don't either. I know I'm not alone in this. And so I started sharing, and I'm not a gatekeeper. I want to empower other people and show them how to do it on their own. And guess what? It's not that they're not good with money. It was they weren't taught how. We aren't taught how in our society. We don't talk about it. It's not in school anymore. It used to be back, in the 80s. I don't know how old you are, but I remember taking it. We had to do a budget and everything. They don't teach that anymore.
I went to school in the 70s and 80s, and they didn't teach me.
They didn't. We had to do a
No.
budget in our home ec class. We had to create a budget for the household and go food shopping.
I don't think we did. I might have just stuck my head in the sand because I didn't like it.
Well, I didn't pay much attention, obviously. I think it's wasted. But we aren't taught how to handle our actual money. We're taught how to make it. We aren't taught how to handle it. Making the decisions of, is that really worth going into debt for? Is that really worth, what do I want more? And like my kids and I made that decision. Do we want this home, this life here, more than we want stuff? Because we could have given up our house and moved in with my mother and had stuff. Would have been way easier. But we chose what we valued. And I think that's what it comes to with money is when you take the blindfold off and you actually look at it without shoulding. I call it shoulding on yourself, right? We're not going to should on ourselves. There's no shame, no blame. Money is it's just how in exchange for what we're getting. In the past is the past. We get to look at it and say, do I like how I'm doing it or do I want to change? And we get to use those past experiences, that past knowledge, and we get to we get to write the next chapter differently. And I think that's what people need to know. So when you take the blindfold off and you do look at it without shame or blame, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And say, okay, do I like where I spent it? Do I want to keep spending it there?
And
And
I think the biggest thing is choice is, we're kind of taught in our society that we don't have to make choices, right? We don't have to say this or that we can have it all, right? Especially those of us who are women who were raised in the 80s, right? This idea of like, you can have it all, right? I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan, right? While you're holding the kid and, and you can't, we have to make choices. And I think that is the biggest disservice that happened in that era, right? Of we can't do all that. We have to make some choices with our time, with our money. And I don't know if it's only because of that era, right? But we don't want to have to make those choices.
yeah, we don't. And I remember that and I'll never let you forget you're a man. Remember that? Remember? And I look at that and I cringe now because now I see it as a woman with like 8 arms because we got to have the cell phone and the computer and the baby and the soccer ball and the frying pan. Like, how many hats are we supposed to wear at once? And that was what, again, with my kids, it's like, okay, we have a choice. Mommy can work more, but you're going to have to go to before school care and after school care. And I can make more money, but I won't be able to get you to soccer. I won't be able, like, this is just the reality. Or we do with less and I work less so that I can, because I have a daughter with a heart condition. So I wasn't really excited about her riding the bus. It was a little scary. So I wanted to be able to make sure that I could be there, because if she went down on the soccer field or anything, like, I needed to, that's scary to get that call, because it did happen once where I wasn't there and I got the call from the ambulance because she did go down. And that, so we decided that I would make less money and we would do it less so that I could be there. Because you can't, there's only so much time. I cannot, if I could clone myself, I would have, right? Because again, I couldn't even be, if both kids were playing, I couldn't even be at both games. I had to, which kid am I going to go support? You can't have it all at once. You can have it all, just not all at once. And we have to make choices. That's adulting at its worst, isn't it? It's the freaking choices.
And I think that's why so many people give up their financial power, is they don't. Adulting isn't easy, and it means you have to make choices, and we don't want to make choices. We want what we want when we want it, and we want all of it. And I can say, I have handed over the keys to my financial kingdom, in my marriage. I'm divorced now, but because I just didn't want to deal with it. Right. And I was a total brat about it, and I didn't want to deal with it. And I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. And, was unwilling to take any responsibility because I wanted him to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it. It was too traumatizing. But I was also not willing to be responsible with it. And, obviously it ended up being a contributor to the end of the marriage. And, now I've had to really adult and really reteach myself the same thing, teach myself that skill set. And even, gosh, it's been 7, 8 years. I'm still struggling with that idea of like, but I want it. And then I'll get to the like, but I need it. Like,
so we have
I
3.
need it. And I deserve it.
That's that word. So I'm dealing with a business owner right now that I absolutely adore. She's phenomenal with her business money. She is on it. She knows her profit margin. She's on it. But now she's going through a divorce. And do you know she has no idea about her personal money?
Yeah.
She's never looked at her personal finances. She left it to her husband. Here is this strong, smart woman, a powerful woman about her own money for business, that doesn't deal with it in her marriage.
I see that, though. I think that that's very common among really powerful women. Not really common, but I know there, there are people who you're so in charge at work, you don't want to be in charge at home too. Because it's too much. It's too much to be that person all the time, right? It's like the female executive who then, is a sub, when they get home, right? Because you can't be that all the time. And you just want to feel like, I don't need to be this in control and this on all the time, because it's too exhausting.
It's nice. And I said that when I was dating, I'm in charge at home. I run my business. I run other people's businesses. I just want a man that will plan a frickin' date. Can you plan the date for me? Can you take a little control? I don't want to be the man in my relationship. I want to be a girl, right? Not a woman. I want to be a girl and let go of control because it is a lot sometimes to run it all, and it is exhausting. And wouldn't it be nice if someone just came in and took care of it all for us?
Right. But on the opposite side of that, then we give away all of our power. We don't know what's happening. We kind of get to the place where you did, right? And I did too. Or we just don't, even I was, when I got divorced, I was left in a very good financial position, but man, I didn't know what to do with it. Right. I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, I just frankly just ended up getting really drunk and spending it all, and then got sober. And thank God I had some money to help me for a while to just focus on sobriety until I could, get my head out of my ass. But Yeah, I didn't have that skill set and I didn't want the skill set, right? I didn't want that. I didn't want to get to that place. And I'm very fortunate that I'm remarried. And, my husband was like, I can't be with somebody who doesn't want that skill set, who doesn't want to know what's going on with their money, who isn't going to be willing to, have the conversations about it. And, I think, though I don't love to admit that I wouldn't have had that skill set without somebody, without a man. At the end of the day, I needed somebody to kick me in the butt and say, make it worth my while. Because to me, any conversations about money, because of the trauma I had when I was a kid, were taboo, right? It
Yeah.
meant divorce. It meant something awful. It meant you were going to have to move from your home. And so I'm not going to have that conversation because it's too scary. It's too hard.
Yeah. I did that with my new husband, right? He came into my life and his first wife gave him an allowance. She took his paycheck and gave him an allowance. He had no idea. He didn't know how to online bank. He had never paid a bill. And I was just like, dude, I'm not your freaking mother. I want a partner, not another kid. So if we can't get on the same page, we can't be together because I'm not. First of all, you're not controlling my money and you're not going to suck my money dry either. So we need to be a team or we can't be together. And, the poor man, because he has to deal with this, right? He's so patient. He's really good because I can be a bit of a bitch. Shocking, right? So he went through and he disagrees with me on some things in the beginning because I'm not anti-debt. I think there's a place for debt. I'm anti-credit card debt, right? I think there's good debt and there's bad debt. And I looked at him, I said, if we had debt, like the bad credit card debt, we would have been screwed when Scott died. Like that'll kill you. And I said, I'm not going to have you. You'll sink me the way you spend right now. I said, do you have any idea? And he's like, well, he really didn't. So I make him. He still hates it, by the way. We sit down and it used to be weekly. And now we sit down monthly and we have a money game plan discussion. And we both have, okay, this is what I want to do with our money this month because we have our budget. But then, stuff happens like he's working this weekend. He'll get good money this weekend. And we decide how much of that will come to us. We decide how to blend our money. And I want him to have autonomy so that he can have freedom to spend how he wants to, but yet he meets our obligations at the same time. And I have my autonomy and he doesn't see everything I spend either. That autonomy as an adult is really nice, but being able to have a conversation about things without it being, he's like, was never able to have a conversation without it being a fight or me being demeaned and I was just like, yeah, no, we just need to be able to talk about this is where we're at. This is what we need to pay. This is, this is what we need to come up with for money together. And whatever's left over in your account that's yours as far as I'm concerned. But this is what we need as a family. And being able to do it without judgment, without that condemnation. I think that's the hard part. I don't care if it's personal or business. For people to actually look at their money and not feel demeaned, belittled for either mistakes they made, and I call it mistakes. It's just money that they spent that could have been spent better, right? And I always yell at people when they say, I can't afford that. Nope. We're going to say that's not how you choose to spend your money right now. You can afford whatever you want. How do you choose to spend your money? And so getting over how we talk about it, like the whole saying, money is the root of all evil. Is it? Money is just a tool like a hammer. You can build a hospital or, you can build a bomb. It's a tool. And how are we going to use that tool? The more women that make money, women are way more philanthropic, right? Women are so much more. And when I work with men and women, it's so different. Men, this is like they go in, this is the price, this is what it is. You can't afford it, too bad, right? Women, they go in, this is the price. Oh, but they're a mom and they're struggling. I'll take a little off and they can pay me in bits and pieces. And right. So here we have this, and it's our strength as well as a weakness, because we have this nurturing where we want to help others with our service, and we're going to, kind of lessen what we're going to benefit in order to help someone else. And it's a double-edged sword. I think it's our strength in so many ways that we're compassionate and nurturing and want to give, but we need to be able to make more money and keep more of it to be able to make a better world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I ask all of my guests this, which is, if you were to speak to someone who is in the middle of their dark night of the soul, right? They have been hit with some sort of a calamity in their lives, and they have no idea what's happening, when it comes to their finances, or they know it's not going to be good, right? What would be the one piece of advice that you would give them?
That nothing stays the same forever. We all go through hell, and the point is to not set up camp there, to keep going. And everything, you can figure everything out, right? Whether it's going through bankruptcy, whether it's, okay, the electricity is going to be shut off, they're going to repo my car. I've been there, right? Been there. And the first thing to do is to really, it's hard, but to know that this is not going to last forever. You are not going to be in this shitty position forever. It's going to suck right now, but you're going to get through it. You are.
Yeah, I love that. So if somebody's in that spot and wants to work with you, what does that look like? Where can they find you?
So you can, if you're a woman, you can join my private group on Facebook. It is free. It's Empowered Money Making Mamas, which I might change the name of, because whatever, things are always changing. You can get you can have a free strategy call with me as well. And I can share the link to you, but you can go right to my social media and there's a link for that. Because I like to say, okay, let's see where you're at. And I like to give people a mini game plan right then and there. Where are you at? What are you stuck on? And I'll give you a game plan at no cost, because I think everybody needs to know that they can do something right now, right? Mini game plan to get moving. Whether it's taking control of your personal or your business or getting on it, whatever it is, let's get you a game plan to get moving. And then if people want to work with me more, we can talk about that. But at least know that you have a resource available. And it's my passion is sharing these hard-won lessons that I really wish I had. When I started, when I was there, I wish I had somebody who could have sat with me and just told me what the hell to do next. What do I do next? And that's what I want to offer people is, here's what you can do next. And
That's awesome. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
that's okay. It's, we're all in this together to lift each other up. And this is where I love the name of your show, because really my baggage is why I do this. My baggage is where I learn the lessons. And I'm going to carry this baggage around with me everywhere, because it serves me and it serves others. And if I can help another woman to not go through what I went through, I will. It's so worth it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. But I want to talk about, you mentioned that you have a book and the title is The Best Ever. And so you need to tell us about the book.
So, being this, right, I was laid up for a little bit, and my brain doesn't always stop. I'm not good at sitting still. So here I was laid up. And so I decided to write an ebook. And it's called Getting Comfy with the F Word, Finances. And it talks about how our personal money and our business money they're like best friends, and they do affect each other, and how you can take control of your finances, because it's the same tools you use for your personal money are the same tools you use in your business, right? So how do we take control, and how do we not just make more money, but keep more money? Because the point isn't making it. The point is keeping it, right? Keeping it from Uncle Sam, keeping it from the debt collectors, keeping it like we work hard. Let's feel the benefit of it. So how do we make it so we can make more and keep more money in our pockets? And so it's the steps I took that dug me out in those darkest days. And I give you the actual worksheet that I used. It's been tweaked. right? And I'm actually now, I use a digital one that I'm going to share eventually. I have to make it so that it doesn't have my personal crap on it. But it's my actual first worksheet that I used and all the steps that I took to get on my feet again so that my kids and I weren't just surviving. I did not want us to just survive. I want us to really thrive. And I'm really happy to say we are. My kids are grown and flown, living on their own. And they're 20 and 23, and they're completely self-sufficient adults that are very good with their money. And it's the lessons that they learned and the things that we did. And I love to empower other people with that. So yeah, it's called getting comfy with the F word, because, I grew up with a grandfather who owned a trucking company, and one of my first words was the F-bomb. I learned from the best. And he said to me, I sat in his office one time, I remember, my mom was his bookkeeper. And one of the guys came in and got his check, and, the guys at the F-bomb. My grandfather said, you notice they are very comfortable saying that F word, but they won't come and talk to me about a problem with their check. And that is where that has come from, is my grandfather in the trucking yard and the F-bombs. And, he's like, you got to be able to handle your money. If not, someone else will, and they'll take it. So
100%. 100%. Thank you so much for being here today. I love this. I feel like we could talk all day long, and you've got so much great wisdom around this. And I think it's one of those places where we just stick our head in the sand, and you're such an incredible example of what we talk about on this podcast, which is how our baggage, becomes this awful, but this amazing turning point in our lives where we learn to be a different person, and we don't walk away from that. We don't put it, in a corner, and we don't put it away. We say, this is what makes me who I am now. And furthermore, I'm going to help other people who are in this same boat. And so, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And we appreciate you. If you want to find Krista, she is on Instagram at Money Making Mamas. And what's your website?
So it is moneymakingmamas.com, and it's MAMMAS. So moneymakingmamas.com. Same thing on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is Krista_McLellan, which my kids laugh terribly. They just think my TikTok is horrible. They can't believe I'm on it. But you done is better than perfect. Get out and do it. So I did it. Why not?
Amen, girlfriend. I tell people that all the time. Like, record it, don't watch it, and post it. And, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So good.
That's cool, right? So anyway, thank you so much again. We appreciate you. Mwah. If you liked this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends and give us a good rating and all of the things. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Bosses with Baggage. We are honored that you chose to spend your precious time with us. I hope that you are feeling inspired to reframe your setbacks into your superpowers so that you can change not only your life, but the life of everyone around you. If you enjoyed today's podcast, and I sure hope you did, please subscribe, rate, and share on your favorite podcast listener. And if you have any ideas for a future guest, or you need some help growing your business, I'd love to connect with you. You can find me directly on my website, which is sherrysutton.com, SherrySutton.com. We'll see you next time.